One, the call to reimagine the world. How did this happen so quickly? The way that people think about the world, through assumptions that have been developed over time, shapes how people think and act out in the world. The new social imagination has produced societal institutions, like the public school, that carry out their values to our children. And what I have gathered, because I have a lot of relationships both here in the United States between Muslims and Christians, the same is true in the UK, is that one thing that's constant between those two spheres is this, is that they're all concerned about what is going in the public school classroom. And so that's important. Now, according to Philip Reeve, we now live in an age in the West where the dominant culture rejects any transcendent sacred order and is thus foundationally different from what preceded it. So Charles Taylor refers to the two beneficial words that result in two ways to understand these two worlds. The first world is called the mimetic view of the world. This means we get our meaning and purpose from God. It regards the world of having a certain order, a given meaning, and thus sees human beings as required to discover that meaning and conform themselves to it. And that there's a moral structure to the universe, that there is a design for men and women. With that idea, the world has a given order, and in the case of Christians and Muslims, that given order is discovered through the revelation that comes from God. This means God's revelation was given by God and is inerrant. And so for the Christian and the Muslim, they both believe the same thing. Now, the counter view today is the poiesis view. And that means getting meaning and purpose by looking to self. Poiesis, by contrast, sees the world as impersonal, new, raw material, out of which meaning and purpose is created. So when it comes to men and women, the idea of gender, they don't believe one has to be constrained by a religious tradition. To the contrary, gender can be fluid. And so it can change according to one's inner feelings. So, in an article by the Scientific America titled "What the Science in Gender Affirming Care for Transgender Kids Really Shows," in that article, it didn't even deal with the biological realities of gender. It was the psychological effects of gender that was scientifically analyzed. But the basis of which, that there may be a certain design and certain norms between men and women, that wasn't even a category. Well, that comes from a poiesis worldview. Now, what has happened from a religious perspective is that modern society has dethroned God and enthroned self. Our culture has abandoned long-established moral standards, thrown off restraint, and now encourages people to seek fulfillment in their preferences and passions. What was once unthinkable has become not just accepted, but is socially promoted and legally protected. The self reigns supreme. Now, Christians and Muslims have traditionally believed that reality is there a moral and structure to the universe, and it was created by God. God created the world, thus bears the stamp of God's design. And it is every person's responsibility to recognize and respond to the design of the Creator. This means that man's purpose, meaning, and fulfillment are found not in pursuit of deeply felt preferences and passions, but in a relationship with God. God calls us to deny our passions that go against His design.